says we're frustrated with listings selling before we can get out to see them. Seems like everything we see on Realtor.com and other big sites, and the other big site that was in the rest of this note that I had to cut just so it fit on the page was AustinHomeSearch.com, are already sold. What do you suggest? Well, this is, and I'll touch on this, and I want to get your take on it, Perry. This is a challenge where if you're a buyer and you're looking for property in Austin, you have to understand that sites like Realtor.com or Trulia or any of these other big sites are all fed indirectly. In other words, they don't have direct feeds from the MLS. They take a period of time to upload the data. So as a result, because they're not a live feed, sometimes they're out of sync. And if you're in a high-velocity market where things are selling quickly, the most reliable thing you can do is you can get on a site that has a direct feed for the MLS. In other words, it's getting listings directly from the MLS. There's no 48-hour delay, for example, like you see at times on Realtor.com. So what I would suggest, Ralph, which is even more important, is you need to be under contract with a top agent that understands market conditions. This ties into what we've said before. You need to be working with somebody that will be looking out for your best interest, that will be notified immediately when something's entered into the MLS, let alone pushed out to websites. And they'll be out there willing to preview it. I know I do this. I know Perry does it. And they'll be able to contact you immediately. And it's only going to work if you've hired that agent to be your representative, not if you're working with 4 or 5 agents, not if you're trying to do it on your own. That just doesn't work in a hot market like we have, does it, Perry?
No, it doesn't. And remember, when you have a contract as a representative buyer's agent, they're obligated by our ethics code to tell you about things first before anyone else. It's really critical.
Well, it is something I think people fail to understand. And they fail to understand that you're not giving up a lot. If you end up hiring the right agent, it's like drafting a football star onto a football team. It changes the dynamic. And the dynamic in the market is you may only be one of 15 offers on property. So let's kind of talk about this for a second. Imagine you're buyer A and you're working with 4 or 5 agents and you're relying on Realtor.com. You're going to be not even on the playing field because all the offers will come in. And they may very well come in by the time you see it, hence what you see Ralph's frustration. Now, player B is working with, or buyer B, I should say, is working with Perry. They've hired him. They've entered into a buyer agency agreement. Perry gets notified as soon as something meeting this buyer's criteria hits the MLS. Perry is on it. He's typically, if it's close, let's say it's a downtown condo, he's going to go out and preview it. He'll be in there at 9 o'clock in the morning. He'll be on the phone with his buyer talking about it, whether it's a fit or not, having already seen it. Probably will have shot some video so that the buyer can see it instantly as to whether it's a good fit, what was the view like. And before any of these other buyers are even alerted to it, in all cases, they're probably, this buyer B, working with Perry, is going to be in better shape. They're ahead of the foot race to put an offer in. And somebody like Perry with a heavy experience in multiple offers is going to encourage their buyer to have everything lined up so the offer can be put in that morning or early in the afternoon, whereas the majority of the next 10 offers might not come in until late that night or the next day.
That's right. Using tools like DocuSign, being able to quickly respond. And, if you have an internet access, you can sign an agreement quickly.
Absolutely. And that would be the expectation that this buyer B would have set by a professional agent like Perry, who understands the implications of a hot market with multiple offers. And here's the second question from Susie. This one frustrates me probably more than anything. And it's the mantra of mediocrity. And what I would ask Susie or any other question, is it important to you, or I should say, is it important enough to you to get the house or condo of your choice, the first choice, to hire the best agent? And would you approach this differently than you would if you were in the lawsuit of your life and the financial consequences would be dire if you lost a lawsuit in terms of hiring an attorney? Now let's look at the question with that. I see all sorts of discussions on Trulia and elsewhere where agents are suggesting finding an agent you connect with or have rapport with. It seems contrary with your suggestions on this podcast about finding an agent with experience over that feel-good or connection driving the decision. What say you? Well, here's the issue, Susie. If you feel great about an agent and they don't operate like Perry does, they're going to make you feel good, but you just missed out on that condo in downtown because they don't understand the mobile offer market. So the question is, are you more concerned about feeling good and really enjoying your time with the agent, or do you want somebody that's got the right skills? It's certainly not to say that somebody is not going to enjoy working with Perry. What they're going to enjoy is good friends. It's the combination of both. But I think what I see as a bad thing, and this is what Susie brings to our attention, on Trulia especially, is there's 9 out of 10 answers is make sure that you really enjoy working with the agent.
Right.
And I would say probably 80% should be nobody even gets to the second step of the vetting process unless they can answer those key questions that we had on about, I think it was about 3 or 4 podcasts ago, about how to hire the right agent. And if you can't get through that process, don't worry about whether you like them or not, because it's not going to be a win-win proposition. Everybody's going to feel good, but you're going to lose the battle. And you're not going to get the property you want because they don't have the experience, they don't meet the vetting criteria. I would suggest that you should have this be the second tier of vetting out an agent, which comes when you first look at the experience level and the other factors, and go back and listen to that podcast episode where we talk about how to pick the right agent. If they fit all of those criteria and you feel strongly about that being the right person, then figure out, okay, is this person going to absolutely drive me crazy, or is this somebody that I want as my advocate? Can I deal with this person? And I got to tell you, you may be pleasantly surprised that you can get both, but not, in my opinion, if you try and lead with the first. There are too many very, very nice, very, very sweet agents that rarely do any business in multiple offers. Number one, they don't do that much business in general, but they rarely win in multiple offers, because I can tell you the one thing that comes into play in multiple offers is it's ruthless. It's aggressive. It requires your agent to say, I'm your advocate. I'm going to do whatever it takes, including get into that property as soon as they'll let me in and shoot video and do everything else, because you know it's not a matter of, oh, well, you know, I had all this going on with my family, and by the way, I was pretty busy today. I was doing my continuing ed or whatever was going on. Buyers that hire the right agent never hear excuses like that. Because I tell you what, I know I do this, and I know you do too, Perry, is if it's a perfect fit, nothing else matters first thing in the morning when you can get in and preview a property for a buyer like that, does it?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'd like to add on to some of your thoughts. I thought your thoughts were brilliant. Something I've seen in Trulia especially, there are lots of agents from other areas that give absolutely fantastic advice. I can think of a couple right now. Bruce is one who's in Dallas that answers a lot on the Austin site. I think there's Lynn 411 is brilliant. These people obviously know a lot about the real estate business, and I think that the Trulia give agents as a whole a great opportunity to make a first connection with buyers and sellers and to give practical answers from experience that they have. I think what you were alluding to is the drill down process that needs to go on through there. You've got,
right.
You get great answers on a question, Trulia. The question now is this person the best in this particular area? Or do they understand my particular needs, and do they have lots of experience in that? So I think it's okay to connect with brokers and agents out there on Trulia and Zillow, because they do have good information, but you've got to ask more questions now. The same way we would inspect the house a little deeper when we're going out and buying it. Yeah, it looks good on the side, but let me get an inspector here to kind of ask you a few more questions, if you know what I mean.
And I would agree with that. It's a vetting process, and I'll go back to the very first analogy as we get ready to wrap up today. If you were in the lawsuit of your life, or you had health issues and you were going to interview surgeons, you wouldn't be so blasé. I find it the biggest commonality for people having poor experiences with real estate is they treat a purchase of such a gigantic asset with just nonchalance. They'll just be like, well, you know, they're all interchangeable. And I'm here to tell you that the reality is agents are not interchangeable. They're very different in their skill level. I mean, you probably have 90 or 95% of the business done by about 5 to 7% of the agents. And it's very, very skewed. It's very different than if you were to go out into other business practices and try and identify who the players are and who you should work with, isn't it?
Right, right. I think so.
Fantastic. Well, Perry, if anybody has questions for us, they can certainly send them to info@austintexasrealestatetoday.com, and we'll go through and vet those. Can't promise you we'll get them on during the next episode, because we certainly at times have them backed up, and we usually have time for a question or two. We do appreciate them. Sometimes we'll end up answering them offline, even as part of the podcast. So if you do have a question, just know that we will always answer the question, regardless of whether we can have it on the show. So, Perry, we're done with episode 11. We are turning the corner into October, and I'm pretty excited with where things are headed. I think it'll be interesting when we get to episode, I'll call it like 18 or 20. We'll have been through the election. We'll be getting close to the first of the year. It'll be an interesting look. And I'm putting a stake in the ground, and I think that we're going to still see a strong fall for Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, what do you think?
I think so. There's too many people moving into town. I had 2 executive relocations this weekend. They're moving in, and the people that are here, their lives are changing, and they're downsizing, right-sizing, whatever the right thing is. There is that perfect place. Don't give up hope, guys. Get out there, look. The right house is there for you, and with the right agent, we can help you find it.
Fantastic, Perry. Thank you so much, and we'll